Hello, everybody. Welcome one, welcome all into another show. I am John Kurtz. The Big 12 has got a Boise problem on its hands. Perhaps you could phrase this as well as the Big 12 has a Kansas problem on its hands because Kansas can effectively ruin the Big 12 season. Certainly play a large role in that. They already have and can do a little bit more this weekend. College football playoff rankings came out this week. That means nobody is happy. You know that's how it works. Everybody gets furious when the college football playoff rankings come out now, and everyone is complaining from the Big 12 to the Big 10 to the SEC. There is a ton going on this week, a ton to break down. We're going to get into it all. Not much of it great for the Big 12 right now. This has been a wildly entertaining league. It is delivered on that, and it is going to be really interesting to see what exactly the hell happens here over the last couple of weeks, but it's going to be nail-biting time if you are a Big 12 fan. An ACC fan perhaps too, but the Big 12, based on this latest batch of rankings that we got, looks like the league that is going to be squarely in the crosshairs of having to sweat it out. So I appreciate the comments that I'm seeing about the new graphics. Thank you. Was curious how those would go over. But I'm glad that it seems to be a hit. So yes, welcome in. New changes here, trying to make things look better. I've got one for Desmond Howard today. If anybody saw what he said on College Gameday over the weekend, you know exactly where I'm going with that. It is so indicative of the problem that we have in this sport right now, where nobody wants to care about the overall health of the sport and instead just be all about the brands and be flippant about anything else. I've got one for the SEC, who, despite having all the advantages in the world in the sport, continues to whine more than absolutely anybody out there. It is unbelievable. And that's really been a lot of the college football discourse this week. Plus, on top of that, it sounds like the SEC and the Big Ten are already trying to make some changes to all of this. They're already upset about what is going on with their conference championship games in light of the college football playoff. And man, who really changed the system so that right now we are in this sort of a place where the conditions would be ripe for your conference championship game to not mean as much? Crazy. Very funny how that works. Cue the hot dog meme. Anyway, that's what I've got for you today. You guys know how this works, though. Fill up the chat. Everybody who's in here, continue to do that. I appreciate all of you doing that. But if you want to make sure that your chat makes it on the show tonight, click the $ below the chat box. In order to do that, submit a super chat. It will pin it in a separate column for me and ensures that you make it on tonight. Appreciate everybody who does that. Could not do it without your support. If you'd like the video, that's a totally free way to do it as well. Make sure you are subscribed. I gave you the numbers the other day. Literally looked at the live stream after the Holy War, and 75% of the viewers were not subscribed. So please subscribe to the channel. That would be very helpful. And if you're a Big 12 fan, you already got a little preview of what's to come on this episode. If you are a subscriber to the Open for Business newsletter, it's ofbnews.com to get subscribed to that. Big 12 news, no SEC or Big 10 bias, everything that matters to you as a Big 12 fan coming straight to your inbox for free 3 times a week. ofbnews.com is where you can subscribe to that, or click the link in the description of this video and join 2,900 other Big 12 fans who are subscribers. Okay, I think that is all the housekeeping that I have for you before we get going today. Okay, I assume most of you watched the college football playoff rankings get unveiled on Tuesday. If you didn't watch the show, you've seen them by now. And you know that Boise State is 2 spots in front of BYU. They're 4 spots in front of Colorado. And yes, that appears to be a problem for the Big 12. But I would tell you it's not exactly a problem in the way that it appears on the surface. Like your typical Big 12 haters, people who want to run with an anti-Big 12 narrative would take it to say, well, look at this, Big 12, you're screwed. Boise is in front of you already with a couple of weeks left to go. SMU, by the way, is at 13, which that's an entirely different issue that I will get to in just a moment. But look at that, Big 12, you are done because Boise is there already right now. Now, obviously, this to me is ridiculous on a couple of different levels. I think the SMU part more so because that is such a direct head-to-head. They played this year, right? SMU and BYU played this year. That game was in Dallas, and BYU won. They have the same record. But beyond that, okay, beyond just, hey, they have the same record and one team won a head-to-head matchup, how about we just compare strength of schedule? SMU has a strength of schedule. It's ranked 86th in the country. BYU is 53. So as much as people want to come down on BYU's schedule, SMU is worse. Again, they have a head-to-head road win. They have a ranked win, which SMU does not. That ranked win being over SMU. And there's this little fact that K-State dropped out of the college football playoff top 25, which I'm not here as a K-State guy to like complain about anything. Look, K-State has dug themselves their own hole. But when Illinois and Mizzou are still ranked with objectively worse resumes, objectively worse, K-State 2 ranked wins, 2 ranked road wins. Mizzou has 1 win over a team that's over 500. Illinois has none. All it does is take away a nice data point from BYU and serves to prop up the Alabamas and Penn States of the world who have beaten those 2 other teams. I digress. BYU's got the better resume than SMU. It makes 0 sense that they are behind there. And that is a part of what the Big 12 is up against. Okay, but the Boise piece here, right? The Boise piece. If you want to break down, all right, let's look at these resumes. I mean, Boise has wins over UNLV and Washington State. I would just say that this continues to be really an issue of the quality loss discussion here, because what Boise has is a close loss to the number 1 team in the country. It's a quality loss issue that is really hurting BYU there because BYU has blown out K-State. They have won on the road at SMU. I think their resume is better if you remove a quality loss there that's doing a lot of work for Boise. But as I mentioned, this is not quite the deal that haters would take it to be right now, because right now doesn't matter. We have a couple of weeks of games, 3 weeks, 2 weeks of the regular season, and then championship weekend for things to play out and for teams to be moving up. And I think it is very safe to say that if BYU wins out, they'll be just fine. If Colorado, who is at number 16, wins out, they'll be just fine. They would jump Boise, and the Big 12 would wind up getting the 4th bye spot by being the 4th highest rated conference champion. Because if we play this out, BYU would be, I think, best case scenario for the Big 12's sake to just be totally sure that you are going to jump in front of Boise State. Because if BYU wins out, they would get wins over number 21 Arizona State on the road this weekend. That would help them in and of itself and probably would be enough to leapfrog Boise already. They'll play Houston, which isn't going to do them much. But then you would think number 16 Colorado, perhaps higher ranked than that if they win all the way to get there in the Big 12 championship game. If BYU wins out and gets wins over number 21 and number 16, at least as they stand right now, to do that, neither of which would be home games for BYU, one on the road, one neutral, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. They would jump Boise. I feel very confident in that. If Colorado wins out, again, they're at 16, so they're still very much within striking distance of Boise. I think Colorado would also be fine. That would mean Colorado gets wins over Kansas and Oklahoma State, which the Kansas game would be, that would be a very impressive win. It's not going to hold up that way for the committee because Kansas was busy puking all over itself in the 4th quarter for the entire first 2 months of the season. It is what it is. Not going to help them much. But you get those 2 wins, and then you would presumably be playing a BYU in the Big 12 championship game, maybe somebody else. That's where I guess it could get dicey if it's going to be a 3-loss team because total chaos happens outside of Colorado. Maybe that would not hold up enough. But you assume if they get somebody like a BYU in the conference championship game, that win would also be enough to boost them above Boise when Boise is going to be playing 2 sub 500 teams, and then Colorado State or UNLV in the conference championship game. 2 sub 500 teams, and then Colorado State or UNLV. I don't think that's going to be enough juice for Boise to hold on to that spot based on who the Big 12 champ would be there. If the big if here obviously is if the favorites take care of business. If the favorites take care of business, the Big 12 will be just fine. And that is why I say the initial knee-jerk reaction of people looking at this to throw shade at the Big 12. Like, that's the problem, is not that Boise is there right now. The problem is that the table is set for any other setback for Big 12 favorites to be the kill shot. You don't have much margin for error. That's really the thing. You do not have much margin for error. If one or both of those teams drop a game, it's going to be really, really hard to get somebody back above Boise. And that is what really puts a lot of pressure on this weekend, because next weekend it's going to be BYU playing Houston. It's going to be Colorado playing winless Oklahoma State. Honestly, the BYU Houston game, you'll definitely still need to keep an eye out on that, especially if BYU is going to continue playing the way that they've played the last couple of weeks, where it feels like they're really running out of steam as they get to the finish line here. They're not exactly breaking the tape with a bunch of force at the moment. But the point is, this is the weekend where, BYU's an underdog. BYU's a dog. They're going to Arizona State. They are not the favorite. It would be an upset if BYU won that game in the eyes of the sports books. If both teams lose this weekend, you're looking at just a wild scenario of tiebreakers. And I was going through and playing with the tiebreaker scenario generator, and it looks like if both of those teams lose, the tiebreakers could very easily, assuming the other favorites win the rest of the games this season, tiebreakers will be sending Arizona State and Iowa State to the Big 12 championship game. Now, it's not like that is I don't think those teams are like bad, and that's some disastrous scenario from the standpoint of just like what the teams actually are. I think those are pretty good football teams. The problem is just what it would do in the eyes of the committee. That would not be great if you're losing BYU and Colorado this late. And like 2 weeks ago, it looked like for sure you were going to be able to get out of the group of K-State, BYU, and Colorado, who were all in the top 17 of the playoff rankings. Like, yeah, of course, you'll be fine. You'll get 2 of those 3 and nothing to worry about as far as holding on to one of those top 4 buys. That has now changed quite a bit in just a couple of weeks. And that's why I continue to hold K-State up in that group, just because the committee saw real value in them and those 2 ranked road wins that they have at Colorado and Tulane in the playoff rankings. So K-State's puking all over itself has not helped. BYU with a rough loss and a pooch punt that goes off of a dude's helmet has not helped the league. And then Colorado, I guess you could just say like Colorado getting punked at Nebraska earlier this year, not aging very well. That has not hurt the league. So you got all that to be paying attention to this weekend. Plus, obviously you'll be watching Boise to see if they do hang on to win. And then I hesitate to even talk about this a little bit more. I certainly have already, but you've also got to worry about Army. You've also got to worry about Army, number 19 in the college football playoff poll, unbeaten, and now taking on Notre Dame this week. Boy. Now, I think Notre Dame will be fine, but I tell you what, anytime that you introduce the triple option, the offense that nobody's preparing for on a regular basis, weird things can happen. And what do we know, kids, about Notre Dame this year? What we know about Notre Dame is that they are capable of losing to Northern Illinois at home. So that means they're more than capable of losing to Army, the number 19 team in the country, according to the college football playoff rankings. So that's a problem. That is a problem. Of course, the significance there is if Army were to win, and then you've got BYU and or Colorado going down, any combination of those 2 teams, Well, now you're not just worried about losing a top 4 bye. You're also worried about losing a spot in the playoff period. If there are 2 G5 champs ahead of you, then they would be the top 5. They'd be in that group of top 5 conference champs, and you'd be totally on the outside looking in, and that is the doomsday scenario. So as far as this weekend goes, okay, what if I told you, cue the 30 for 30 music, what if I told you that a team that started 1-5 could ruin the Big 12 season and set the league back massively on a national scale, set the league back significantly in terms of perception, because that is the ultimate reality here. That is a real thing that the league is staring in the face. It just means this weekend could be really, really bad for the Big 12. Next weekend too, but as I said, this weekend is the one that looks much more like that. Cannot have BYU lose to Arizona State and Colorado lose to Kansas. One of those you can probably survive. You definitely can't have both. Maybe, I don't know, I guess this is one that I have not discussed as much yet. What if Arizona State beats BYU and they win out? They're at 21 right now. If Arizona State were to beat BYU, we'll say even handily in this game, close out the regular season in the Territorial Cup and take care of Arizona, and then go to the Big 12 championship game. And if they play Colorado, who still has not lost again yet, and it's, like around 14-15 Colorado, you beat them. Would Arizona State have enough juice to jump up like 9 to 10 spots from where they're at right now to get over Boise? Maybe. But you would certainly be sweating it. And that's really a big part of the point of this conversation here, is it feels like you would be really, really sweating it if that were what is going to happen. So as I set the table for this weekend for Big 12 fans, I just want to say this is nothing personal against Arizona State and Kansas, because I think some of you would look at it and say, hey, wait, isn't he a K-State guy? The K-State guy whose team just got punked by Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State is going to turn around and tell us that we should be rooting against Arizona State and rooting against his rival, Kansas, who his team is directly recruiting against, that could be piecing together 3 straight incredible wins. Yeah, I understand why you would say that. I'm telling you, root for your squad, man. If you're a Kansas fan, root for the Hawks. If you're an Arizona State fan, forks up, baby. Like, root for your team. That is not what I'm telling you. But if you are a neutral fan, if you don't have a stake in the game other than you're a Big 12 fan, here's your viewing guide and here's your rooting guide for this weekend, okay? You are going to want to root for Colorado to beat Kansas in a game in which Colorado is a slim favorite. Last I saw, it was 3.5 at Arrowhead Stadium. I saw earlier today that Kansas is expecting to have upwards of like 55,000 at Arrowhead, which would be a much better attendance figure than what they've had most of the year, because by the time they got to Arrowhead, things were already heading in a disappointing direction. But I saw that from Matt Tate, who's been covering Kansas forever. And it makes total sense, right? I mean, you can draw in casuals, right? Like, there would be casuals in Kansas City who would be interested in this game just to watch Colorado, seeing Coach Prime, Travis Hunter, Shador come to Arrowhead. That is a draw. I understand it. You then would also want to be rooting for BYU to beat Arizona State. And that, I got to be honest, having just witnessed Arizona State in person, watched them play from the press box at Bill Snyder Family Stadium, I don't know, man. That BYU will have to be significantly better. Significantly better. The offense, I just don't know if BYU has another gear still left on offense. It feels like that may not be there. And if that's not there, I think they will have a tough time with Arizona State. I will say the BYU defense would probably stand a much better chance than K-State did at shutting down Jordan Tyson, who was just, and they schemed, really, that's a lot of it. Marcus Arroyo, Arizona State's offensive coordinator, did a hell of a job just scheming Tyson on safeties all throughout the game. Shout out to Parker from our Discord, patreon.com/streamaw. If you're a K-State fan, you want to get signed up for that. But he pointed out, I mean, Jacob Parrish, who's K-State's number one corner, when he was on Tyson throughout the game, it was like one catch for 8 yards, but he was only on him for like 12% of the snaps because they kept scheming him on everybody else, which is a great thing. I mean, that's a huge asset for Arizona State. BYU will stand a better chance to defend it than K-State did. Maybe that will make much more of a difference than I am anticipating right now, but I think that could spell real trouble for BYU. And speaking of attendance, the game is sold out. That's another thing I saw. The game is sold out. That's going to have a big-time atmosphere, a big-time feel. Josh Pate from deep in SEC country is opting to go to that game instead of Ohio State, Indiana, which is a nice feather in the cap for the league there to get that. So that's game number 2. Colorado to beat Kansas, BYU to beat Arizona State. You're going to want to root as well for Boise to lose at Wyoming. And with that, I say good luck. Wyoming is 2-8. I just saw that. I remember the beginning of the year when Arizona State, I believe it was, beat Wyoming. And we were like, hey, that's pretty impressive. Weren't expecting that. Wasn't expecting that really from the Sun Devils. Yeah, Wyoming's not good. They're not good this year. Boise has had some slow starts. Even last week, you look and saw they were down 14-0 at San Jose State, who's a much more capable team. Didn't come through, though. Boise was able to pull that out fairly comfortably. So don't hold your breath, but that would be next on your viewership list here. If you're a Big 12 fan, your rooting interest list for the weekend. And then finally, you're going to want to root hard for Notre Dame to beat Army. I do not also want to be somebody that's accused of telling you to root against America here. I mean, look at the rap sheet that I'm building up here. I'm telling you to root against my rival. I'm telling you to root against the team that just spanked mine last week. And now I'm telling you to root against America in favor of one of these big brands that is just ruining college football. Unfortunately, I'm giving you the truth, okay? I may not like it, but I'm giving you the truth. You're going to want to root for Notre Dame to beat Army. So again, I just say that to say root for your team, but if you care about the general interest of the Big 12 and you don't have a dog in the fight in any of those games, that's who you will want to root for. And it is so wild that all of this really has been started by a team that was 1-5, left for dead. The vibes were horrendous around Lawrence and the Kansas football program earlier this year. I mean, short little recap here. They're not able to play games in a home stadium. They started by playing where Sporting Kansas City plays for the first 2 games of the year. They lost one of those to UNLV. Then they have to go play these sparse crowds at Arrowhead. They lose 5 games in which they had a lead in the fourth quarter. The other one against TCU, they were down by 1 in the fourth quarter, and it was a very close game. They find a way to lose all of those. Jalen Daniels was throwing a bunch of interceptions after everybody was primed for a Heisman campaign with him. And with all of this, you had Travis Goff, the athletic director, tweeting about the man in the arena. You had Lance Leipold's wife tweeting something, complaining about the fans. Now, she would later say, I was hacked, whatever. It wasn't me. It felt like the Kansas fan consensus was that was her. I don't know. You can be the judge on that. But that's what was going on. And that was just at the beginning of the losing streak. Then it got worse from there. Kansas should have won at K-State to snap a long losing streak to their rivals. They have not beaten K-State since 2008. They would have if not for catching a kickoff out of bounds at the 1-yard line that turned into a safety. I mean, that's been the kind of year that Kansas has had. But what have they done since then? They punk Iowa State to push. Again, that hurts the Big 12. If Iowa State were sitting here still with 1 loss, you'd be like, well, that's another team that would either be in front of Boise right now or could very comfortably jump Boise by winning out here. Kansas eliminated that. Kansas eliminated any chance of an Iowa State at-large bid. It started the whole path that the Big 12's on here where it's going to be damn near impossible to get 2 teams in, obviously. And then Kansas goes and beats BYU, hands them their first loss. That significantly hurts the conference and where their position is right now. And Kansas can go for the trifecta and eliminate Colorado, from being able to help the Big 12 against Boise in all of this as well this weekend. It's insane. It is so par for the course in what people expected this conference to be. Maybe I can't even really say par for the course because what is the course? Like what is par in this new Big 12? It's the maiden voyage. It's the first year of it. But I think the point with that would be everybody said it would just be this zany conference that beats each other up. That's what we've got here. A team that started 1-5 is perfectly capable of beating arguably the best 3 teams in the league in succession here, which is what would be happening if they do beat Colorado this week. Is it crazy to say this would be the best win that Colorado has had this season? Like, people won't recognize it as that, and I don't say that as a trying to run down Colorado's resume, but the way Kansas is playing right now, you're getting the version of Kansas that very easily could be like 9-1, 8-2 right now, and you're having to do it on the road. You very easily, I would say, could argue that perhaps would be the best win that Colorado has had this season. Hold your breath. Hold your breath this weekend, Big 12 fans. That's all I will say about that. If you want to use your breath right now for complaining about the committee, that is totally fine. There are a million things to complain about, and everybody is complaining about it, including our good old friends in the SEC, which I will get to in just a moment. But I do want to mention, if you are here in the chat and you want to guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight, click the $ below the chat box to do that. Create a super chat. It will put it in a separate column for me. It will get you on the show, guarantees that you'll be on the show. And it's just a great way to support the work that I am doing to bring you this content on a week in, week out basis. Couldn't do it without all your support, and I appreciate it immensely. Like the video. If not, make sure you're subscribed. If not, totally free ways to help the channel. And if you're not catching it live and you still want to be a part of things, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo is the way that you can do that. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. Leave a donation there with a question or comment, and I will kick off the next show with that. So very easy way to still be a part of things, even if you are not here live. Okay, let's go to Daniel real quick. Appreciate you, Daniel. Thank you for being here. Cat fan in Huskerland, a.k.a. Daniel Osborne. Shouldn't quality wins count more than quality losses? I always thought a win should count more than a loss. Call me crazy. You are not crazy, Daniel. I would very much submit to you that a win should count more than a loss. I'm about to walk down a dangerous path here, especially as we talk about BYU versus Boise, because you can do the same thing to BYU probably that you can do to Boise here. But if you point out that Oregon was not playing very good football at the beginning of the year when Boise had their quality loss to Oregon, because Idaho, by the way, had a quality loss to Oregon where they were pretty close. You could also turn around and say, well, SMU was playing a different quarterback when they lost at home to BYU. All right. I would also suggest to you that BYU eventually started playing a lot better than they were at that point, but it's a dangerous game is really the ultimate point in all of that. But I would just throw that out there also. Yes, wins should matter more. Wins should matter more than losses. I'm with you on that. Daniel, who is from Omaha, as you can see, Cat fan in Huskerland, Union Omaha USL League One champs. Go Cats beat Cincy. I'm glad, Daniel, that you still have some spirit about the Cincinnati game this weekend. It's tough, man. This is the playoff era, and if you have a program that fancies itself a legitimate playoff contender, and you get here to the end of the year, and that's out of reach. You're not going to win a conference championship. You're not going to go to the playoff. It's hard to get fired up for these games, especially when this is a point that I will just beat into the ground. I know I'm preaching to the choir generally here with this audience, but one of the things Conference Realignment has done is it has created a lot of these scenarios at the end of the season where, yes, you would always have some level of worrying about what kind of effort you're going to get when the playoff is out of reach. But it's even worse when you wind up with games in that spot at the end of the year against teams that you have no real connection with. It's nothing against Cincinnati as a program at all. Cincinnati was in the college football playoff 3 years ago. It is a good program that has won consistently with different coaches. but there's no tie. There's no history with K-State. So it's not, how are the K-State players? I know someone's like, well, you only get 12 opportunities and you can give me the coach speak, blah, blah, blah. It's tougher for the players to get up for a game like that, as opposed to a team that there would be some kind of rivalry. It's tough for the fans to get juiced about it, which, the players would feed off of. I keep using the example, Cincy is 5-5. Nebraska is 5-5. K-State has a history with Nebraska, a long history. The fans, there's rivalry there. If that is who we're coming in here, I don't think you'd be worried as much about what kind of an effort you're going to get and what kind of a game that would be. With Cincinnati, it is tougher. It is tougher. So I say all that to say, I appreciate your enthusiasm, Daniel. As always, thank you for being here, my friend. Much, much, much appreciated. Okay. I saw some of you guys in the chat already talking a bit about this with the SEC. You guys ready? You ready for me to come after the SEC here? Cue the 30 for 30 music again. What if I told you the best league in college football is also the whiniest league in college football? That's the story that we have today. What would the 30 for 30 be called? Sankey EC, the whiniest league in college football. We'll use that as a working title here for this 30 for 30. And by the way, the SEC is the root cause of all of their own problems that they are whining about here. It looks like most of the college football world has spent this week complaining, arguing on one side or another about Indiana. Poor Indiana, who just keeps winning and who just keeps, for the most part, destroying people, is taking a lot of crap now that they're sitting here at number 5 in the college football playoff rankings with 2 weeks to go in the regular season. A ton of people. I mean, the orchestrated SEC attack has come for Indiana. And when I tell you that, like, Pac-12 fans thought last year that the Big 12, that Karen, Overlord Karen from the Big 12 was pulling the strings on all these different voices coming out in defense of the Big 12 and doing her bidding and doing Brett Yormark's bidding. Boy, it's really felt like the SEC has done the same thing, and that Greg Sankey sent out the bat signal. And well, obviously here comes Paul Feinbaum. In fact, I think he would have been the one there with his finger on the button that Greg Sankey was pushing as well. They were pushing it at the same time. So, of course, he's there, but then you've got your Josh Pates. Ryan Russillo apparently was included in that this week as well. You got a lot of people caping up for the SEC and man, why is Georgia behind Indiana when Indiana hasn't played anybody? This G5 schedule, this is awful. And it's funny because it does seem like the narrative has really pivoted. The narrative has really pivoted from Indiana being this great story to now, hey, we're here at the end of the year and the SEC is going to completely come out with a coordinated attack on what's going on with Indiana. The real piece of this narrative has been, hey, if Indiana loses, they should be out. If Indiana loses, they should be out. If they lose to Ohio State this weekend, that is. Obviously, that's a massive game this weekend. If they lose to Ohio State, they should be out because the rest of their schedule has just been so bad. They'll finish with Purdue. That's obviously not moving the needle for anybody. Well, I would say to SEC fans, first of all, please keep the same energy for number 3 Texas. And I will give credit to Josh Pate. He has kept the same energy for number 3 Texas. But if we're going to complain about where Indiana is at and some level of Big Ten bias here, Texas at number 3 is there are a lot of asinine things in the entire top 25, but I do think Texas takes the cake just because of the significance of being at number 3 so damn high. When you've got to put up a graphic that says key wins Vanderbilt and Arkansas in the year of our Lord 2024, my friend, what are we doing? What are we doing with that? Joe Adams isn't walking through that door. This is not Bobby Petrino Motorcycle, Arkansas. The key wins are Vandy and Arkansas, and you got drilled by Georgia in your own stadium. Would have been uglier if not for fans throwing a bunch of crap on the field and getting a call overturned. That's who we're going to hold up at number 3. Please keep the same energy, SEC fans. Please do. But instead, they're all coming for Indiana. A great story that really should be pretty celebrated in college football. And I know you can push back and say, well, John, don't you always say like the most annoying thing to you actually is the Big Ten because they get these cream puff schedules because they're always so top heavy? Yes, that is a perpetual annoyance for me in college football. You are absolutely correct. Penn State, the king of the cream puff eaters, the king Twinkie eaters would be Penn State year in, year out. But Indiana is kind of drafting off of them this year with what they're getting for their schedule. So yes, the Big Ten schedule part of this annoys me, but Indiana is a novelty. It is the type of thing that makes college football great that they have risen up here. And they also have been killing people. They've been killing people. They've been beating basically everybody by 30. And when you've been doing that, I am much more open to saying, yeah, you know what? You probably should be in this 12-team field, even if it's going to be 11-1 with one loss to Ohio State, the one ranked team that you play all year. I don't think it should be a scenario where everybody is just coming in and converging on them and killing them. But this is why it's happening. Ari Wasserman really nailed this. And this, by the way, is a real SEC Big Ten big brand wonk. Like this, Ari Wasserman loves him some big brands. Loves him some big brands. But he nailed it. He said this. What's actually happening is Indiana is a threat to the SEC getting a fifth team into the playoff. That's when the fun stops. That's when it's not cute anymore. So now we're hearing a lot of Indiana hasn't played anyone comments, which have overwhelmingly replaced the fake cheers from expansionists who pretended to want this. It's very well said. That's very well said. And I would tack on to that. I mean, look, it's obvious. Yes, that is why this is happening. There is Tennessee is the first team out, the way that the rankings are currently constituted. I know I mentioned Georgia earlier. I guess theoretically the real debate from SEC folks would be like Tennessee versus Indiana here, and it's ridiculous. Tennessee will get left out. Tennessee beat Alabama. How are they going to get left out when Indiana has this schedule? Blah, 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 blah. That's what we're doing here. And it's because it's really threatened the SEC getting, 4 playoff spots is not enough. They need 5. They need 5. And Indiana could prevent that. I would also point out what kicked off this latest realignment era that we are in. It was the SEC taking Texas and Oklahoma, playing divide and conquer all over the college football board. And they did it by taking Texas and Oklahoma. That started the dominoes falling that created an 18-team Big Ten and a 16-team SEC, consolidating the brands, but also creating such massive leagues that you're bound to have some teams that get really bad schedules, like Texas, like Indiana, because there's just so many mediocre to bad teams in a league that's going to be that big. You could have, like the SEC has, 6 to 7 like very good teams, but you're going to wind up with a lot of crap. You can have damn near the entire top 5 of the college football playoff poll if you're the Big Ten, but you're going to have a lot of crappy teams dragging down the bottom of that. They just so happen to get randomly generated into Indiana's schedule. That will happen every single year, and it's because of what those two leagues, but the SEC who started it, turned the sport into. Massive conglomerates with tiebreakers that you need to have like a doctorate to even decipher, and unbalanced schedules that are going to lead us into dumb arguments like this every year. So it is very much, I said the hot dog meme earlier, we're all looking for the guy who did this. Very much the SEC who has spent the entire week whining about all of this. They created this. They created the environment that birthed Indiana. The Big Ten deserves some blame too. Yes, I'm not going to completely absolve them of this, but the SEC started all of this. They created this monster, and now they're having to deal with something threatening. Look, like when the Big 12 complains about things, they're legitimate existential threats. This is not an existential threat to the SEC. This is whether or not they get 4 or 5 teams in the playoff. Cry me a river, dude. Cry me a river. What are we doing at that point? Why are we wasting our time and energy on that? And if that wasn't bad enough, now we're sitting here with the SEC and Big Ten already ready to change the playoff structure because of, again, something that they created, which is conference championship games not being nearly as valuable anymore. And you've had coaches openly complaining about it. So let's take you down a trip through Josh Pate's Twitter timeline here. Conference title games being devalued will be used as a reason the SEC and Big Ten overhaul the college football playoff. Again, I expect them to seek an AFC, NFC postseason structure. Don't even ask what this means for the rest of the sport. I think we can all kind of fill that in. It would be bad for the rest of the sport if that's the way that they're going to go. He says there's no chance they're about to listen to coaches publicly question whether playing for a conference title is worth it and not act. These plans have already been discussed inside both the SEC and Big Ten separately. Logic would indicate they'd seek to work together on it. So I guess the reporting aspect of that is like these plans have already been discussed, and he's saying that they will try to find some solution that would make this more like an AFC, NFC postseason structure. Always has been a risk. Always has been something that could happen if it's not going to work out the way that the SEC or Big Ten want it to. They can take their ball and go home. They can tweak the rules. They can get rid of the committee if they don't like what the committee is doing. All things that have already been discussed. But we're seeing it, and we're not. It's November 20th. Like we've still got 2 weeks of the regular season left, and we're already in this mode where the SEC is so butthurt and whiny that they're wanting to move toward that because their coaches won't shut up about not wanting to play in these conference championship games. That surprise are not as valuable when you create these massive conferences. You take away a lot of the regionality of the sport where it doesn't mean as much to have more evenly distributed conferences and be a conference champion coming out of there. And you have all these unbalanced schedules and weird tiebreakers and things that are going to make all of that in the sport just a mess and very uneven. You guys did this, and now you don't like the consequences. So now you're going to try and tilt things more in your favor, take your ball and go home, alienate more of the country. Boy, it is all just such like capitalism to a detriment, man. Just capitalism taking over the sport to a detriment. Not good. Not good at all. And it sucks. But it is here because the SEC is going to continue to whine. And I'm not even somebody that would tell you that the SEC is like a bad conference. Those of you who follow me on Twitter at JL Kurtz, as you see on the graphic, you saw that I tweeted earlier this week. I think all three of these things are true. One, the SEC is the best conference in college football. I believe that, and I don't know that it's particularly close. I think they are in terms of they've got like high-level teams up at the top that can compete at the top. And they have more depth of very good teams in the league, and they have less crap at the bottom. I think they're definitively better than the Big Ten. It is the best league. But point number two that is also true is that the scales are tilted in their favor. They have all the advantages. Big Ten too, but the SEC has all the advantages, and they're gathering more and more every single day. And point three that is also true is that they whine more than any league out there. The SEC is the best league. They have all the advantages, and they whine more than anybody else in the sport. That's what we have. That, to me, is the reality of all of this that is going down right now. So you can't come at me and say I'm an SEC hater because I will acquiesce to you all day that they are the best conference, and they have been for a long time. The SEC is the best conference out there. It doesn't mean that they're not whiners, and it doesn't mean that they didn't create this monster that they are whining about. All right, that's what I got for the SEC. Earl, what's going on, Earl? Thank you, sir. Earl says, John, BYU loses to both games. They lose to ASU and Houston. Wow. It looks like you're a BYU fan, Earl. Like that looks like Cosmo the Cougar that's on fire. Earl, are you that down in the dumps about BYU right now after the Kansas loss and the close call against Utah? BYU loses both games. They lose to ASU and Houston. It could happen. Obviously, I said they're an underdog this weekend, and man, I mean, Houston is capable of beating a team that at least is of K-State's quality. They have been better, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. I would not predict them to lose both, though. I would not. So chin up, Earl. Again, assuming you are a BYU fan. It looks like you are. Maybe I'm assuming incorrectly. But chin up. It's going to be okay. I don't think it's going to go down quite like that. All right, well, I just took out the SEC. Now it is time for me to take out College Game Day. More specifically, Desmond Howard. So when we talk about the Big 12 losing the perception war and how big of an issue it would be if Boise were to get that fourth bye in the college football playoff and not the Big 12, we have Exhibit A on just what an uphill battle this is already for the Big 12 and how much worse it would get if they were to lose that fourth auto bye spot to the Boise State Broncos. And Exhibit A comes from one of the guys and one of the entities that is supposed to be one of the real stewards of the sport, promoting the sport more than anybody, which should very much be just for the greater good of the sport. And that is College Game Day, right? College Game Day, which was once as much a part of the fabric of college football as anything. It was indispensable content on Saturday. It was something you had to tune into. And that has very much dwindled away. I barely watch it at all anymore. It is not appointment viewing. Some of that is just a product of the environment that we live in today, right? Some of that is there are a lot of ways we can consume niche content about the parts of college football that we care about. What you're doing right now, watching this channel, right? So it's not as necessary to watch the Saturday morning show that's going to focus in on college football at large as a whole. That is definitely a part of it. Lee Corso was a huge part of the show. Obviously, he's aging, and it's a bit of a tougher watch now with him, much as we all love him. It's part of that. Pat McAfee can be a polarizing figure. I guess for some people, that probably makes it better. For some, that might make it worse. But I think the biggest part of all of this is just that it just feels like the whole show is just an extension of the SEC and Big Ten propaganda machines. It is very much emblematic of just everybody in the sport right now. It just seems to be all about the big brands. At least for me, I mean, you guys know on this channel, we're coming at this from a non-Power 2 perspective. At least for me, it has felt that way for a while, where it's not about promoting the entire sport. It's not about promoting the good of the sport, the things that make the sport great. We had just last year, Pat McAfee crapping all over Washington State as they were going through their saga of getting left out of the Pac-12, which was a horrible thing and a horrible look. Not good. Not good. And now we have this clip from Desmond Howard on Saturday. Freaking Desmond Howard, man. I was very, very upset to have heard this on Saturday. Yes, it was about the Arizona State K-State game, but again, I would tell you, it's not because it involved my team. It's because it involved my conference, and this was a very important game in the college football world last week. So here is what Desmond Howard had to say.
Big 12, Arizona State, Kansas State still in the mix. They need a little help to get to the Big 12 title game.
I saw that on the rundown. I was like, why are we picking this game? I thought it was a mistake.
It might be the first one of those this season.
Yeah, but this Kansas State, I guess. Let's go, Kansas.
Why are we picking this game is what Desmond Howard tells you. Desmond Howard says he saw that game on the rundown, 7-2 Arizona State at 7-2 K-State, a game that his network is airing, a game that involves teams in the league that his network is a partner with, and a game that has college football playoff implications, which again, his network is involved in airing. And the college football playoff is a made-for-TV entity that ESPN has a huge hand in. That is exactly why people wanted it, because it makes games like that matter for the college football playoff. All of that in place, and all Desmond Howard can muster is, well, I saw that on the outline, and I wondered why we were picking that. Like K-State, I guess, whatever. bro, that is everything that all of us hate about the sport right now and where it is going toward. Desmond Howard is kind of playing the role of the fans there, where the currency of fandom in college football now has turned into, instead of like, hey, we win more games, we win the games, it's no, we're a bigger brand. Look at our TV money. Look at how valuable we are on this Forbes list of the most valuable brands in college football. That's what it has turned into. And it's reflected now even in the guys who are supposed to be the real stewards of the game, promoting the game to everybody on College Game Day. And that is beyond horrible for the sport. Beyond horrible. So he's playing into the stereotype and just not doing his homework, outside of just the damage that does to college football when you're going to treat anything outside of a game between huge brands in the Big Ten or the SEC like that, like the redheaded stepchild. You're also just not doing your homework because, again, everybody wanted this expanded playoff. Most people anyway, not everybody, most wanted the expanded playoff. And the advantage of that is that it makes so many more games like that very meaningful. It adds extra layers to them that keep everybody more interested. You should be promoting that. Not only that, but again, your network is involved with the playoff. Your network was literally airing that game later that night. I'm sure Dave Fleming, who was doing play-by-play for that game, was thrilled to see Desmond Howard crapping all over it and basically telling people not to watch it. And then it's a conference that you are a partner with. Like, it is in your best business interest as an ESPN employee to hype up that game, and you've got nothing in you for that. Like, this is the problem that we have in the sport right now. And even if you are an SEC or a Big Ten fan, of which we have some that I've seen in the chat tonight, and there's no existential threat to you with all of this, so you're going to take it in a bit of a different way. I would still argue that there is long-term a bit of an existential threat in all of it, which is that if you keep doing this and you keep cutting out big swaths of the country, and if you're going to say, well, now nobody cares about our conference championship games and we might not be able to get 5 teams in this playoff, let's just go do our own thing. If you do that, you are going to alienate so many people that it's going to have diminishing returns for you. And you'll chase down the bigger TV paycheck for now. And you'll say it's because, well, we're under so much pressure and stress because of revenue sharing and we've got to hit that number. And you'll say all that. Get back to me in 10 years when the checks are not as fat because you have ruined what the sport is and cut out a good portion of the people who absolutely love it. And we're just barreling down this path, and you see it from all over the place. It's not just Twitter. It's not just going to twitter.com and finding the people who will take a dump on the Big 12 there, or the ACC, or G5s, or whoever. It's now the people that are literally on the show that should be just a bastion of everything that's great about the sport. That's where we are. That's where we're at. That's where we are at. Don't like that, but it is what it is. Let's get to James CC75. What's up, James? Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support of the channel. James says BYU or Colorado needs to win out, including the conference championship game, so hopefully the Big 12 jumps Boise. Yep, that is correct. That is correct. That is what the Big 12 really needs to happen. If you don't get one of those two winning out, it's going to get dicey. It will get very, very dicey. I agree with you, James. I hope you caught the beginning of the show where we went more in depth on all of that. But if you did miss that, obviously you can go back and check it, get the whole live stream posted here, try and get you some chapters as well so you can check all of that out. But thank you, James. Appreciate you, man. This is buzzer beater time. If you want to get something in, click the $ below the chat box to do so. We have a large Twitter audience in here right now. So I want to remind all of you guys, if you are Big 12 fans, if you're not subscribed to my Big 12 newsletter, Open for Business, that is one great way to support me. It's also a great way to just get Big 12 news filtered straight down to you. Don't have to worry about reading regular college football news that's going to come at it from a Big 10 or an SEC angle. I'm giving you the news, what it means for the Big 12, and it is curated by Big 12 fans, myself, for Big 12 fans. You got 2,900 plus subscribers to it. Join them at ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description of the video. If you hop on over to YouTube, you can find it there as well to get subscribed to the channel. Also, if you can like the video, that's totally free. Make sure you are subscribed. If you are not so far, that also really, really helps me out. So appreciate all you guys. Channel's been growing a lot lately. So thank you to everybody who has been a part of that. One last bit for you that I wanted to get in. This is a follow-up to the Big 12 TV story that I gave to you earlier this week, which is a huge thing. The Big 12 has found another TV partner, and there are many benefits. I would tell you that there are far more benefits than I gave you the last time I talked to you about all this. The Big 12 getting some games on TNT and partnering up with Warner Brothers Discovery to be yet another TV partner. I think it's another stroke of brilliance from Brett Yormark, and another really good thing for the league in a variety of ways. I'm going to give all those to you right now. So this comes from a Ross Dellinger story, Yahoo Sports. So obviously he's one of the best in the game. And he says, as a part of a settlement struck between the NBA and Warner Brothers Discovery, the Big 12 will see 13 of its football games per year moved from ESPN's streaming platform to linear television on Warner Brothers Discovery channels TNT and TBS. ESPN is also sub-licensing 15 Big 12 men's basketball games to be aired on either TNT or TBS. So big part here that is a key is that this is taking games that would have been on ESPN Plus, right? I hear all the complaining about the streaming platform. I know it can be clunky and frustrating. It does have some benefits, but it can be clunky and frustrating. Games that would have been on ESPN Plus being on TNT or TBS, 13 football games, 15 basketball games, that is wonderful. That is wonderful for the Big 12. That is taking it from behind a paywall where you're going to have fans of the teams watching it, and that's about it, to cable and like big major cable channels that people know how to find, TNT and TBS, that will do a great job with the production because they're replacing the NBA. They do a great job with those broadcasts. They have the infrastructure. This will be excellent. And the fact that we get confirmation there that it's games that would have been on ESPN Plus, hell yeah. Everybody should be running to sign up for that. Dellinger says the sub-licensing deal begins next academic year and spans 6 seasons, running concurrent to the Big 12's new TV contract with ESPN and Fox. Okay. I mean, that's great. All 6 years left on the TV deal. So you will have games on ESPN, Fox, TNT, TBS, and then CBS getting involved there with some basketball too. ESPN, Fox, TNT, TBS, CBS, all airing Big 12 football and or men's basketball games for the next 6 years. That sounds pretty damn good, man. That sounds pretty damn good, especially for this little old conference that can't even jump Boise in the college football playoff rankings. Warner Brothers Discovery receives the 28 games to fill windows previously occupied by NBA matchups. Weekly kickoff times are still unclear. All right, I guess maybe that's something we could say. Warning, because people worry about the late night slots there and how much more of that is going to happen. Weekly kickoff times are still unclear, but 10 of the 13 games will be Big 12 conference matchups. Okay, so 10 of the 13 football games will be conference games. It's not like these are all going to be directional FCS schools that are coming in to play Big 12 teams. You'll get 10 conference matchups. Big 12 games will also be simulcast on the streaming service Max, formerly HBO Max. Perhaps overshadowed in the NBA's announcement, the Big 12 piece is a significant boon for the conference. The deal shifts football games scheduled to air on ESPN Plus streaming to more visible linear cable channels. It gives the league a fourth network partner and positions the conference well in its next TV contract negotiations, Yormark said. So this is coming from Brett Yormark. That is his pitch on this. His pitch is, look, we're taking games off a streaming platform that everybody hates and putting them on linear TV on 2 major networks that have good infrastructure. It will also get us a fourth TV partner, which is great. Be more involved with everybody, develop relationships with everybody. And that will help position us better for our next TV contract. Potentially, and I mentioned this the other day, being you can split basketball off. Maybe Warner Brothers Discovery with TNT and TBS becomes very interested in taking part in that and airing those basketball games and taking the basketball package. It's a good thing. I think all you have to do is look at the Big Ten deal and say, well, the Big Ten got involved with multiple networks, and that got them a better deal money-wise than the SEC. Now, Big Ten fans are also complaining now about, hey, we have way too many noon games, and Fox is forcing us into this noon kickoff thing, and that sucks. And yes, you do become, more of a slave to the TV networks there. Can get you some, but look, it's the Big 12 knows its place in the world generally. You know that you're going to have to play a lot of those late night games. You know that you are going to have to bend over backwards here more so than others just because of the position that you're in. But that's fine. You should try and get all the money that you possibly can. You're exploring all these different ways to get money. And if you have 4 TV networks and partners involved here, that will do nothing but just drive the price up, get you better deals when you are going to be at the negotiating table for that next TV contract. Look at the Big Ten. Look at what Kevin Warren did. That would be sort of the blueprint here. ESPN and Fox remain the Big 12's flagship partners, Brett Yormark notes, and the networks will continue to air their committed number of football and basketball games. So, okay, if you had any issue with that, any concern about that, I should say, what is that going to do to ESPN and Fox? Nothing. They'll be fine. No content will be reduced on ESPN and Fox linear platforms. The league's fourth partner, CBS Sports, will air 26 men's basketball games annually in an expansion of a previous deal. That was announced back in September. Here's a Brett Yormark quote. This is additive to what ESPN and Fox bring us. That's why this is a great deal. Any addition to both is complementary and will lead to more promotion and marketing around the Big 12 and conference brands. And that is true. Get a couple other TV networks involved in promoting your brands, promoting your games, promoting your league at large. Finally, here, the Big 12 Warner Brothers Discovery sub-licensing agreement further fills linear windows at a time when 2 conferences, the Pac-12 and Mountain West, are soon entering the market to negotiate new packages. So if the Pac-12 and the Mountain West would have been competition for some of these slots, I guess it's a bad thing for the Pac-12 and Mountain West because now some more inventory has been taken up here. So that is good. That is good. It's dog eat dog. Big 12 at the expense of others, obviously, here, and that's kind of how the food chain works. But an interesting note there that you're sucking up some inventory that otherwise would have been out there for other leagues, and you got to do what's best for yourself. I'm going to respond to Clint here. Clint, yes, they're sub-licensed, not a partner. Well, I mean, they do become a partner. You're going to develop a relationship with them. Yes, they are sub-licensed. You're not making more money now, but notice I said 2031 when we're talking about positioning for the next TV deal. So in 2031, you now have more networks that are involved, that have relationships with you, that will be bidding on what your TV packages are going to be. Football, men's basketball in 2031. More bidders, more people involved, more money drives the price up. The Big Ten, by involving multiple partners, got more money because you can make each individual deal a little bit higher for each one, whereas bulk discount, right? That's just kind of general. Whenever you buy anything and it's all in one spot, you go bulk discount, right? Not the case when you break it all up. So yeah, I know it's not more money now. It's about positioning yourself for the future. And oh, by the way, in the short term, you're getting way more exposure. So that's the blueprint here. Okay. That is going to do it. I appreciate all of you guys. Oh, wait, did I get another super chat? I sure did. Boy, I didn't forget about you, Alan. I'm sorry. Alan, thank you for being here, Alan. Alan says, John, God bless Lance Leipold. Proud that our Jayhawks didn't give up. Hey, man, should be very, very proud of what they have done. Hope the KU wins out, goes to a bowl game, and beats the only SEC team not invited to the college football playoff. Alan, I love that. I love that. Beats the only SEC team not invited to the college football playoff. Cheer for the Big 12 champ. Rock Chalk Jayhawk Allen. Good stuff. Allen getting a little dig in at the SEC. Take that, Sankey. Allen's coming for you. We're all coming for you. Great to hear from you, Alan. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you, man, as always. Have fun watching your Hawks this weekend, Alan. That should be a great game between them and Colorado. I'm very, very much looking forward to watching that. Okay, that's going to do it. Thank you guys for being here. Couple of housekeeping items. Make sure you subscribe to the Big 12 newsletter, Open for Business, ofbnews.com to join 2,900 plus other Big 12 fans who get Big 12 news straight to their inbox 3 times a week for free. No Big 10 or SEC bias. You don't have to wade through any of that. You're just getting what matters to the Big 12. It's a great way to support what I am doing right now. If you can like the video, that would be awesome too. And if you didn't catch this live, you want to be a part of the show, just go to Venmo and John-Kurtz-4 is how you can find me on Venmo. Leave a question or comment with your donation there, and I will kick off the next show with it. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night. Enjoy the college football weekend, and I will talk to you soon.